I just uploaded a few videos on the little nano robots and the luciferase or micro hydrogel and all that. And so this jumps from, it would have been 15 years ago or thereabouts when I would have been Neuralinked, potentially a little bit longer, even though he wants to pretend that's a new thing. They're so full of it. All right. And then I'm not sure at what point, but I believe that as a teenager, at some point, I was injected with something that was supposed to block my chakras. Apparently, back then, the government was already involved in the targeting of and persecution of Christians and psychics. And so, they would begin picking on me with this whenever I was a teenager, which had already been selected before I was born or after I was born or something like that. And then whenever I was a teenager and I started to show, when I was a teenager, I'm burning my garlic. Crap. I really need this garlic too. When I was a teenager, I became like super Christian-y all at once, and I was attacked really badly and thrown in the little kid slammer. And goodness. And while I was locked up as a kid, I began to really have trouble connecting with God, which hadn't really happened like that since, I'd gotten connected. So it was like I got connected whenever I was a teenager at about 14 years old, and people found out about that. And apparently they locked me up and injected me with something that would make it to where I couldn't go into a meditative trance or any kind of meditative state, and that it would bind my chakras and make it to where I wouldn't feel enlightenment and euphoria, and I would feel a sense of being separated from the spirit. So, if I'm 39 years old now and they had that technology out whenever I was 14 years old, and they just freely used it against me, I never had to answer for it. Now, I'm not sure if that is the same injection as the energy harvesting tech. There's supposed to be like a few different things, I guess. At one point, I was told that one of these injections was made in a lab in Wuhan, China. I don't know if they're talking about just the, well, they wouldn't be talking about that. But anyways, I guess Kuan Yin was actually one of the ones that said one of these injections that is a special, something that they were specially testing on people and they didn't want people to know about, which is part of the reason why they just went so hard in the paint and pursued these people trying to take them out. And I guess I was one of them. The energy harvesting injections are really brutal and disgusting and horrible. It's like some of the worst that you could get. It basically turns your body into a battery. And if you're one of the batteries, then basically all these people are sent to you to just treat you like complete total trash every single day. The energy harvesting is going to tie into the old Freemasonic rituals. So like basically the old Luciferian rituals that people knew of, they turned it into scientific studies, and then they learned how to basically do the same thing to people, but without it being magic, making it happen with technology now. All right. And then you just saw, if you watch those little videos, that hydrogel and a couple other things were actually designed by DARPA. So you got, stuff that was made by Palantir, stuff that was made by, Elon Musk back in the day. Then you got the DARPA stuff. Then you've got, there's another group who was mentioned in these other videos that I haven't studied yet, but I need to. they would have actually been the ones that went in on DARPA on all of this. And it would also be DARPA, I believe, that had a little bit to do with the studies that have to do with the eye camera, because I know that one of the times that they were putting me through their absolutely horrific testing, which was like a couple Thanksgivings ago, they were able to show me one of the YouTubers that I was watching. Like, I was watching one YouTube channel, and then another one came up in the very bottom corner of my eye, the very bottom left corner. And trust me, if I didn't already think that they were going to, or already had in some way released this information, I would not be risking my freedom to talk about it. At this point, I am aware that people are kind of getting caught up in what they've done, and that it's a little bit safer for me to talk about than I did before, or than it would have been before. Yeah, so it's just like so many different injections and so many different technologies, and I've heard a little bit or a lot of it about all the different ones, all this different tech. We've got nanotechnology. We've got a plasma protein injection, a living biological substance injection. We've got a chakra spiderweb injection. You've got, there's a few different things. And then there's a brain mapping technology. So DARPA actually does have a lot to do with this. And unfortunately, for DARPA, I guess, I mean, they don't really care, but I do in part blame DARPA for what I feel is slavery, what absolutely has been complete and total slavery. But, I mean, nothing can really come about that. Me just saying, hey, I really don't like it that you guys did this. But kind of, it's in a way kind of putting the word out there for people. But on the same hand, I feel like I didn't do enough this entire time that I've been out here, like just being chased down. And I think that because I was someone who really would have had some facts for people, and that, I would have, the information that I had would have been useful, and it could have helped save lives. And I feel like that was part of another reason why I was hunted down so badly. I don't feel that it's right for American civilians to be targeted, not by the military, not by, special agents or anything like that, especially a civilian who hasn't done anything, a civilian who's not like a wild dope dealer, or, what I mean, isn't part of some massive criminal enterprise that, what I mean, something like that. I think it's especially cruel to go after a civilian like that, or to be doing tests on them. To be dark and scary, to put people in, heinous and frightening situations and circumstances just to test their reactions or whatever, or in hopes that you'll just never have to deal with them again, in hopes that you'll help make them lose their mind or whatever. Yeah, so I'm just like not really happy with my own nation, or my own nation's military, or any of the mad scientists here, or really anybody at all. And it's a really crappy, sad place for me to be as a person, to not really be on anybody's side, and to be wholly disapproving of what everyone has done. And I understand that there's bad guys and good guys and everything, but in my very specific situation, I know full well that people could have stepped out and tried to do something to improve the quality of my life, or to stop the people who were pursuing me, or to put an end to some of the hatred and aggression that you guys, held against me or whatever, and it's one thing to be, watching somebody, testing them, whatever. It's a whole other thing to be deliberately torturing them. To be deliberately torturing them and making fun of them, and making it like a big group fun project for everyone. a nation who I loved very much, who, just like most of our citizens, I very well could have been willing to fight and die for. Anyways, I know that some people just go on those little lists or whatever, and it makes it to where you guys can treat them just however, but that's super wrong. And I know that it's your guys' plans to just make it way worse and just go ahead and just implement this on everyone and do the same shit to everybody, but that's a really bad idea. You guys don't actually seem to have control over what's happened with all these different injections and all these different tech tests and stuff. And one of the reasons why I know that you guys have less control over it than you want to admit is the fact that you had to so desperately pursue those people who did receive those injections and those, that illegal testing. And it also doesn't make it right just because you guys figured out how to create your own loopholes and break your own laws and remake your own laws and, you know what I mean, figured out how to label people as not really human so you could do whatever you wanted to them. That's all not okay either, and you're going to have to fix that as well. So yeah, I've just basically been out here for a long time waiting for people to bring me information about why I'm out here like this and why everything has happened to me like this. No one has approached me yet. Instead, DARPA and others pay these YouTubers to try to explain to me what's going on, which they only do in part. Like they'll partially explain it, but they'll give like stupid reasons that aren't really true, or they'll mix it up for me or whatever, so that I don't really know. They'll give the names of the wrong, you know what I mean? They'll deliberately tell me wrong, or they'll bring up certain subjects that they don't have the answer to just to see what my reaction is, to find out whether or not I'm really guilty or whatever. So they've also used all of this tech basically to interrogate me without having to ever come pick me up, and to basically pull whatever knowledge that they could. See, what they did was they basically made it to where all I had was a phone, and all I basically was using on it was YouTube. And then they set these different people to come up over my phone, like over my YouTube feed. And they were basically like, hey, we know who you are. We know what happened to you. They told me that they knew that my family was that they had stolen my inheritance, and that they were trying to take me out. And they were like kind of talking to me in code. Well, I thought that like America was under attack or something like that. Like I thought that things were like, I knew that I was, you know what I mean? And I knew that obviously if I'd only dealt with bad guys and there was anybody trying to talk to me on the internet, and I was running from the only people that there were, I knew that, the people that came up over the internet were more than likely the bad guys. Basically, they let me know that they knew that I was innocent. They let me know that they knew that I wasn't one of the bad guys. They let me know that they knew that I was being chased around. They told me that I was being trafficked by the police. They told me not to sleep with anyone or to do any drugs or to do anything stupid. And they told me that justice would, eventually happen. They acted like it was about to happen, and that this was over 2 years ago. They acted like justice was about to just bust in my door and freedom was going to ring for me and everything, but they were actually, and they were giving me encouragement, and they were saying things that sort of helped, but it was just so that I would hang on to, so that I would continue to watch, basically. And I guess that they had already injected me with this neural monitoring technology, making it to where they can basically read my thoughts, emotions, and as you guys have heard before, this DARPA brain mapping stuff. Well, anyways, they acted like they were going to help, but I was really afraid, and I had a pretty good feeling that I started to watch one of them, and I realized that my family was the one who put him up to talking to me, and I was just absolutely mortified, you guys. just absolutely and completely mortified. Like, I hadn't seen my family in over 10 years, or it had been over 9 years at the time. And, like, I knew that they'd done a lot of really crazy things behind the scenes, and that they were desperate for me to pass away, and that they were now using this dude to try to speak to me or throw me off or whatever. Well, at first I was like, well, what if part of my family really was made hostage somehow, and maybe with all of the, because see, what they did was they got so desperate for me to be taken out that they actually, like, kind of, like, somewhere in the middle, they started paying white supremacy groups and groups like the Pagans and, you know, the Aryan Brotherhood and the Circle and White Knights and weird stuff like that. They started paying those people to, like, kind of come after me. And, you know, and for all I knew, they'd turned to cartels and everything else. Like, I had no idea. You know, I could only imagine how bad that had gotten, with how desperate they were, and how they'd avoided me. So, you know, so for all I knew, they were, you know, being held hostage in different places by, you know, for all I knew, they were being held hostage by some cartel somewhere or some gang somewhere. And they had to have this squirrely little dude speak to me for them to try and, you know what I mean, get them help or something. Like, I didn't know what was going on. Not that I was going to help my own family after what they did, but I was at least, like, listening to the dude trying to figure out what was going on, you know? And I actually first started watching him while I still had my little boy with me while we were being hunted together. And my little boy looked at the screen at this dude who my family, I guess, had put on to talk to me or whatever. Or this is what I thought first, you know. And my little boy looked right at the screen at that dude, and he was like, "Mom, that's my dad." And I was like, "Err." I was like, "What?" He was like, "Yeah, Mom." He was like, "That's my dad." I was like, I don't know this dude. He was like, I was like, I kind of would have to know the dude for that to be your dad, right? He was like, "Mom, you don't know." And he kind of scoffed at me and was like, "You don't know." Oh, and that kind of feeds into what I have made videos about and talked about before, is people teaching my kids to disrespect me behind my back. And, you know, so this kid had already met his dad, knew that his dad was somebody else other than who his mom thought it was. He explained to me that that they would sneak him out of the apartment to go meet his dad, that they would put a mask on him and he would be snuck out to go meet his dad. And so, you know, even though he was telling me that was his dad, it was like, I was in so much shock by it all. And by the fact that this dude was talking to me and then all these YouTubers were talking to me, and I didn't fully understand why, other than that people wanted me to die. And it was just really scary for me. And then my little boy and I would end up running more, but, the bad guys would catch up to us and end up taking my little boy and have my little boy taken. And, you know, and that dude who my kid was like, "That's my dad, Mom," that ended up actually being my kid's dad after all. Like, it would still take me a while before I would, you know what I mean, have the information to actually put that together. And then he would also pursue us along with others until we made it to one home on a native reservation in the Southwest, you know, where they would send this sheriff in, and she would pretend that she was going to save me from the human trafficking situation that I was in. And then she would put my little boy and I in the back of her truck in the dead of summer and turn her heat on and leave us in there. And it was like a whole bullying ordeal. Like, no one cared about the little boy or anything. No one cared about him. Like, it was, they would just torture him right along with me, and it's all just been big fun for them. So yeah, in the midst of all of this special testing and everything, they even had one of their agents get me pregnant. And then they had this other retard named Tim, who I was actually with. They just had him continue to act like he was a dad because, of course, he wouldn't want to admit that he let another dude in. Is absolutely super, super messed up to me still to this day, and I have had no justice for that situation at all. But anyways, it took me a little bit, like they took my kid, and it was really difficult for me. And then I was just attacked so severely. People could continue to attack me severely. My boss ended up poisoning me. Ran away again, ran across the U.S. to states that I had never even been in before, and was, followed every step of that way. And I had all these YouTubers talking to me. I was actually so upset because at first it was like there was these YouTubers talking to me, and I really felt like that they were going to help me. And why would they have reason not to? Like I was already like so victimized so badly that like if they were just jumping on there to like torment and torture me more, like that was a real shame, dude, because I had really just had just been a witness to these homicides and everything, and had to run with my little kid. I mean, they starved us. When we were in New York, I had to learn how to fly a sign and beg for food and stuff like that so that he wouldn't starve. Like, it was really, really bad, you guys. And to have somebody pursuing us so hard that like there wasn't a place that we could sleep at night where we didn't have these people creeping around us. It didn't matter if we stayed the night on somebody's floor or we slept in the car. And then they would make sure that like my car, there was no way to lock the doors. They would make sure that no matter what, the window was permanently down part way. And it was like, there was no way that I could get any of them. Like anytime that I would get something fixed, I would just like wake up the next morning and it would be exactly the same way. So, it's just been, and then like, they took my baby, and then I was basically just tracked across the nation, just treated like absolute dog shit. I went to all different states. The only states I didn't go to were the very northern states, some of the very northern states. I didn't really hang out in Mississippi or Louisiana either. I didn't really hang out that much in North and South Carolina and all that. I went and I ended up sleeping beside alligators. I learned how to camp beside alligators. I learned how to be a homeless person all over the U.S. I was targeted every single place that I went. Every single day was just been as absolute misery. I very badly missed my kids. Every single morning I would wake up and I would miss my kids. I would just remember what happened to those women who I was run out of West Virginia by, experiencing the homicides that they set up because they were trying to make me crazy or whatever. I would just be so worried that my kids might meet that same fate, that no matter what, and I just being literally passed and sold all across the United States. Like, I really wasn't messing around with people. Like I was just so, I just kept telling them no. Like I was just so repulsed by people. There were people who acted like they might pounce on me and attack me whenever I told them no, but legit, like it's been no to the point where like I will hurt somebody if they don't accept that as an answer. I will gladly, you know what I mean? Because I've just been out here for so long, and I had, 6 months ago it had been a long time. A year ago it had been a long time. I mean, it's been a really, really long time that I was just left out here, just absolutely left for dead. While the only thing that actually mattered to anyone else was doing their little tests and making sure that they did all these rituals and that they were humiliating me the entire time, and make sure that I don't have an ID, make sure I don't have any identifying documents, make sure that I don't have a job, make sure that nobody knows who I am. So anyways, like, the YouTube videos, even though they were bad guys, that was still the first acknowledgement that I'd ever had in my whole life. I felt like that was the first time that I'd ever been acknowledged as a regular human being in my whole life. And so even though I knew that they were the bad guys, I just kept watching. And I thought that it was really sad that my own country and that my own military and the agencies and agents in my own country were supposed to be my enemy, and that these are really, you know what I mean, that those were really the people behind a lot of the things, the terrible atrocities that happened to my kids and I. Just to find out that, they were part of it is just like so mind-blowing and so sad and horrible to me. And my own family, of course, has a very large part to play in this. I feel like that they could have been brought to justice in the first place, and that things would not have gone down quite the way that they have. A lot fewer people would have gotten in trouble in the end. And a lot less attention would have been shown on everybody and the whole thing if people would have just held my simply held my parents and my family accountable to begin with, and had just not gone along with their original plan of taking my kid away from me and giving him to my pedophile family. Yeah. So I will have a lot more to talk about as far as the energy harvesting campaign goes, and what ways that we are abused whenever it comes to this energy harvesting trash. I want to talk more and basically tell everybody everything that I know about it, but even everything that I know about it isn't exactly everything. And yeah, all right, I guess I'll end this much here.